Hello, everyone, and welcome to Natter with Niamh. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Niamh. I'm a Reiki master, a meditation facilitator, and journaling is my passion. Questions, analyzing people's journaling. I call myself a women's confidence coach. What does that actually mean? It means I empower women to find their voice, to help them in their relationships, to speak up for themselves. Um, to actually feel more confident in their lives and to go out and live the lives they want to. And today I have a very, very special guest for you. And my guest is Liz, and she is a calm leadership mentor. And just being in her presence is so calming. And I'm going to let Liz tell you a little bit about her and what she does right now.
Oh, thank you so much, Niamh. Thank you for inviting me into the space to share with you as well. So, yes, I'm an intuitive mentor, a calm leadership mentor. So, I'm here to support you to feel calm. And it's something that is at the very deep foundations of my being is that calm inner self-love. And my role I see at the moment is to support as many people and other species as well with my Reiki animal Reiki alongside, just like you, to really connect into that innate sense of calm that is you. And from there, your calm leadership can flow out in whatever aspects of your life you would like it to be there for.
Yeah, because we forget that when we get into that, I've noticed this as well, we get into that overthinking and we forget that at our core, there's calmness. Like we think of the earth and the center of the earth as, fire and but that's not us for us. It for us, is it? We have calmness and happiness and peace and joy at our core. And we let our brains get over, take over, and let that thinking make us feel stressed. And getting back to that calm is so, so important. And I love that you help people with that. And I also love that you're into Reiki because Reiki is one of the things that I do. And I just love how Reiki makes me feel. And I love when, I treat a client and they get off the bed and it's just, oh, wow, like that was amazing. Um, so finding our calm in life is so important because I think when we find our calm, we find ourselves, don't we? And we start to find our voice. Now, you said in your when we first talked about doing this podcast together that Viktor Frankl was one of your major influences. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So I came across the amazing Viktor E. Frankl probably partway through my recent personal development journey over the last 5, 6 years. And I'd not heard of him before, even though I had studied English at all the way to degree and I hadn't come across him. I'm like, how? How did I not know? But reading his book, like Man's Search for Meaning, it's so short, but it's so powerful. And with his experience, moving through the concentration camp, one of the most difficult spaces for anyone to survive,
Hmm.
let alone actually come out with his spirit still thriving, being able to draw on that essence of hope, that deepest inner self, like you were saying, that really deep inner calmness is amazing, so powerful. And it's one of those things where everything else was taken away from him, his name, his life, everything, everyone he loved. And it was just him. And in that space, he made a choice to connect into that part of you that no matter where you are, no matter what is going on around you, you can connect to you, that deepest inner calm, that inner hope, that inner faith, that sense of peace. And when we can learn to reconnect to that part of us, again, whatever is going on around us in this society that we're in at the moment, which, it has its challenges and its opportunities. I think it's so, so powerful and important.
Yes, it is. And yes, I mean, I haven't read the book either. I'm obviously have heard of it and I've seen excerpts and it does sound amazing that we can find. And it's finding that calm in the midst of turmoil, isn't it? You
Mhm.
know, it's being able to know that you have it all within you, that you can actually survive most of the things that go on around us. Obviously, there are some things that we can't, but having that calmness and that presence um, really helps you with anything that's going on in your life. I think like Reiki and meditation are one of the things that really helped me get through and out of my relationship, because it kept me grounded in that presence and, you know, my sense of peace and calm and who I was, no matter what was going on around me. It helped me to stay true to who I was and what I needed. And I think for Victor, that must have been, I mean, I can't even imagine that, you know. So yes, I can see how he was such a great influence on you. So the other thing I know about you is that you have done a TED Talk, but that you have not always been a natural speaker. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually, my journey is quite funny because I can remember as a tiny, tiny toddler walking up and down the bus on our way into High Wycombe, with my mum, and I would be smiling and chattering away to everybody on the bus. Later, as I was like bussing into work for the council, I was very similar thing. But I was in a like 15-year really dysfunctional relationship and thoroughly lost my confidence in that space. Hampered myself down, was just like, no, too much, you don't get to be you in this
Yeah.
space. And very much, was living through just looking after and giving everything for my three daughters, over that time. And then I was working, and at the time I was working three jobs, and I was in a supermarket doing like a night work. And someone asked me, why are you still breastfeeding your nearly 2-year-old daughter? And I was like, why am I? And I realized that there was a choice there. I had a choice to make. Did I continue doing that or did I not continue that? And within that space of choice, I then began to remember who I was. I then began to realize, oh, you do have a voice as well, in there. That I was so like not confident at that point, so not really trusting myself because I hadn't listened to myself. I hadn't asked myself even, how are you feeling for like this 15-year period? It just got less and less over that time. So then when I came to start, and very soon after that, like 3-4 years maybe after that, we hit the lockdown period. And I was like, okay, I'm at a space where I want to start doing some kind of like work, supporting other people because I've found my voice and I'd like to support other people to do the
Yeah.
same. And I was in a leadership group, and someone said, oh, you've got to go on and do a Facebook Live. And I was like, what? I don't want to talk to like in front of other people. I don't want anyone to see me. Like, I'm okay in this little group. This has taken a lot of confidence to push myself to be, yeah, okay, here I am, starting to let other people see me, as I am.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I know. So I set up a private group just for myself. And I went in and I did some little mini Facebook Live filming in there. But even that, I was so anxious and I was so self-conscious of how I was going to be showing up, even though it was only me at that moment that was watching
Yeah.
it, which is so nervous, nervous of what I looked like. I still had long hair at that point, and just everything. I was like, am I pausing too much? Am I breathing enough? And as I started doing lives and things, my husband used to say, you're not breathing. So I would just talk. And then I continued talking because I thought I had to keep talking. I couldn't stop because, people might lose interest. And I just end up coughing because I forgot to breathe.
Yeah.
So from there, I then began doing like some really tiny exercises, just like 3-second things of just remembering to check in. How am I feeling? How am I feeling? And just noticing that like throughout the day. And if I was speaking to other people, I did some like coaching and mentoring, like group calls in different spaces. And I just remember to breathe. I just check in. Am I okay? Do I need to breathe?
Yeah.
It being
Yeah.
like that simple. Um, and then from there, I built up my confidence, and now, I can show up and I can speak on anything, like as we were preparing for the call, I think it's fine, just flow, whatever questions come
Yeah.
to mind, just flow, and whatever flows out, I trust it's the perfect thing for whoever gets to hear it, whenever they get to hear it, and it's that deep inner trust and connection. And that was a space that I was doing my TEDx talk in, at the end of last year. So a big kind of journey from being very talkative, very open and in flow as a little girl, to then in that relationship just hampering down, just kind of boxing myself in.
Mm.
And like, we don't need to live in those boxes. Let's break the boxes, step out, and you do get to be yourself and build up that confidence. So that you can be confident, as we were speaking before, in all your relationships. And it begins with your relationship with you. Like, that's your
Yeah.
first step. Become confident and listen to you, because what you're saying matters, and you get to hear yourself first.
Yeah. So I just want to ask you two questions to start with about them. How did it feel when you first realized that when you were standing in that supermarket and somebody asked you why you were still breastfeeding and you realized, oh my goodness, I have a choice in this? How did that feel when you first realized that you had a choice?
I
Was it
went,
scary or
it was like amazing.
it was
I was
amazing?
just like, whoa, okay, I do have a choice. That's my choice. I actually have a power to choose. And it reminds me of that feeling. And I had this when my eldest daughter was born. She was very, very tiny. And I remember getting into the car and just going, we could drive anywhere, like freedom, real freedom. We can choose to drive anywhere right now. And it was that same kind of realization. I went, oh my goodness, I've been just drifting along with this current. Actually, I can choose to stop and look around and go, I don't like where I am. Let's shift this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because you spoke about your relationship, and I was in a relationship as well where I had to, so I really resonate that where I just pared myself down and down and down. As I said to you when we were first talking, I became a ghost in my own home. Um, I lost all sense of who I was. And when I was diagnosed with severe clinical depression and I went to see a counselor, and she asked me, what did I enjoy doing? And I said, I don't know, because everything I did was what he wanted. You know, I had forgotten who I was. And when you learn that you have that choice, that can be a momentum. And we forget, don't we, sometimes, that actually we do have a choice. We don't have to do what everybody else is saying. We don't have to follow along. That we can actually say no, or we can say yes to something different. So that was kind of yeah, like that, that's a pivotal moment, isn't it, when we do realize that we have that choice. Um, the other question I wanted to ask you, and I think you touched on it a little bit, was how did realizing that you had a choice affect your relationships with others, sort of in your main relationship at work, outside?
Yeah. So that very immediate old relationship kind of pretty much instantly came to a finish, because I realized I don't like this way of being, and I
Yeah.
get to choose. I get to choose to be different, and I get to choose to step out of this space. So, very quickly, that's what I started to make moves to do. It took a long time, it was complicated, but I did
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it
um,
does take time.
yeah. And having children, it was so complex, but we've all come out of it, and so much the better for it. So it was like definitely a very positive, supportive move for everyone, in the long run. For my relationship with myself, I started to remember that I mattered. And that was amazing. From that point, I then was able to make so many small choices for myself. just in how I spoke to myself. I started to use different language with myself. And I think one of the biggest things was shifting from like, I have to do this for XYZ to I get to do this.
Yeah.
And that rippled out with all my other relationships. So I could choose who did I want to see? Who did I spend my energy with? Um, for me, everything like right at my foundations, it's calm, it's love, it's light. And I got to share that with other people. And each change I made in myself, I saw shifting beyond me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm assuming as well that, when you made that choice, when you, realized you had that choice and you made that choice to, did you have your daughters at that point? Yeah. So I'm assuming that that has actually also changed your relationship with your daughters and how you mother them.
Very much. So, because I was very much brought up, be a good girl, do the right thing,
Yeah.
and kind of the man is right. And that was an indirect thing because my mum's quite strong, my grandma was quite strong. But we went to church, and that kind of it was very, I took it on as man is right, please the man. Like, and
Yeah.
religion and faith is so much bigger than that. So I still have faith. Mine's more of like a universal love. I think beyond religion, I think religion is like dialects of
Yeah.
it. But it's like that bigger space, that more expansive space. So rather than you have to, like we actually do get to choose. And when we're trusting ourselves, we're going to flow into those right intuitive spaces and support ourselves, but then also everybody else. And like that's a massive like inner power, like empowering space.
Yeah. And it's that trusting ourselves, isn't it? That can be so, and especially when you've gone for years and years without actually really listening to yourself, when you've been in that people pleaser mode
Mm-hmm.
and you've gone through and you've just done what somebody else wants and you've forgotten about who you are. That is such a huge thing as well, is actually learning to trust yourself. So I mean, for me it was taking small decisions and doing something really small, and if that worked, okay, then maybe I could do something bigger. So it's that listening into yourself all the time. The other question I wanted to ask you is, when you walked out onto that stage of that TEDx talk, how did that feel?
Ooh, it was exactly the same as that moment of choice. I went, whoa, I'm here. And then I went, wow, I'm here. So it's like they're two parts. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, this is actually happening. Oh my gosh. And then, oh, wow, I get to speak. Like I get to share, and the TEDx thing, it was green means calm. So it was all about calm and like the
Yeah.
importance of nature and that, green space connective. So whilst at the time I was like, oh, I don't know, is this the right subject? Is this what I actually get to share in my TEDx? Have I picked the right thing? Going back to that, oh, like the right thing. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And now I kind of look back and I'm like, it was perfect because it's a lovely foundation of like what matters to me, you know,
Yes.
being connected with nature, like green forest trees, even just saying green forest trees, it can help to calm you just with that essence of greenness. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that was perfect.
So I mean, you chose to tell this story of you going from kind of, being really shy and quiet, not talking, and to then being on a stage with TEDx as kind of, would you say it's one of the more instrumental moments in your life?
Yeah, I think 100%. And I think when I was looking because I loved your like reach out, for the guests, and I've really felt drawn to it. And I trust myself and I follow that intuition now. And I was like, right, what have I not shared? Because I wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be something that was going to be supportive with your mission because I love like stories. I love stories. They're so powerful. because they give you the opportunity to shift your perspective, boom, like that. Because you dial in to somebody else's experiences and you can have those experiences. And I think our minds are so powerful. Our imaginations are so powerful. And even just by sharing someone's story, the effect it can have on you can be like 75, 80% as if it was you that had just gone through that experience.
Yeah.
Like it's that strong. So I was like, yes, share stories and, share that like hope, just the same as Viktor E. Frankl. He shared that story. He didn't even want to share it to begin with, but he did, and him sharing it has given hope for so many people. So if us sharing stories in this space, say it gives hope for 1, 10, 20, 100 thousands, like whatever it is, every single person that is helped, like it's so important because
Yeah.
we've trod that path, we know how it feels. And we know that
Yeah.
there is the opportunity to be calm, to be connected to you, to everyone else around you, and to be confident in that
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. And also, we all have a story. Lots of people will say to you, oh, I don't have anything to bring. I don't have. And I think actually we tell story. And this is what I get with a lot of people is they say they don't have a story. They don't have anything to tell. And I say, but when you have a conversation with your friends, with your family, you're telling stories. That's what you're doing. When you tell the story of, you said somebody came up to me in the supermarket and said, why are you still breastfeeding your 2-year-old? That's a story. That's a story that could have an impact on another woman who's now still feeding her 2-year-old and didn't realize actually I could stop. And that was what, 3 sentences? It, so, as you said, story is so powerful and we don't all have to stand on a stage. And I love that you went from, not wanting to talk to people to actually standing on that TEDx stage and giving your talk and sharing your sense of calm and peace and your green forest trees with everybody. I love that you did that. And that is so powerful. But there's also so much power in those little stories that we don't give up. One, we don't give ourselves credit for the things that we do in our lives. And two, we don't think that those little stories matter. Whereas, for me, I know that every life matters. For me, every story matters. And it's the little ones that can actually be the most instrumental in changing. It's that moment of realization when we hear that little voice in our head going, oh, 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 and then we can move on from there. Um, so anyway, I'm talking too much here, but the other thing I wanted to ask you is, how did it feel when you first kind of started to trust yourself? How did you know that it was really you and not, I don't know, your imagination or somebody else's voice, or how do you know that this was coming from yourself?
I could feel it. So I'm very sensory, like in all the different ways. So sight, taste, smell, physical feeling. And I could just feel it. And it felt like a soft, warm hug, like coming home. It's been raining outside and it's been really cold. And you're trudging along, you've got the dog, you had to take him out for the walk, you had to, whatever you had to do. And then you take everything off, you come inside, you go get that warm drink, whatever it may be. Mine's often, cocoa, bit of cream, bit of marshmallows and that. And you put your like slippers on and you snuggle up. And it felt like that.
Yeah.
It just felt like coming home. And I've had probably 2 or 3 like big moments where I just felt like I woke up since then. And each time everything shifts, like my energy shifts, how I'm speaking shifts, how I'm thinking shifts, and everything just becomes clearer. Everything seems brighter, like more real. And it's almost like you suddenly look out the way and you see all the trees outside, you see all the flowers, you hear the birds, and you really hear them. because you've
Yeah.
connected in with yourself. So then everything else becomes amplified as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced it in the same kind of way, and I've sort of, when I was doing, like, because I've done angel card reading and all the rest of it as well, and when I was working with the trainer on that, and he was always just say, your intuition doesn't shout, your intuition doesn't criticize, your intuition doesn't judge. Who you are is kind and compassionate. It brings joy and peace. And it's when you feel that, and you described it as a warm hug, sort of yeah, for me, it's kind of a sense of calmness, kind of, oh, this feels good, this feels right, and I can feel it in my body that this is what I need, or, so yeah. So we've gone all the way from a stage to coming back inwards to talking, yeah, but that's where it starts, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. 1,000,000%. And it's what I drew on when I was there. And it's what I draw on when I'm here. And it's what I draw on with my clients, like of any species. It's there, it's you. Like, and for me, it's very often like the solar plexus or the heart area. If I'm feeling blockages, and like over the weekend, my throat was like really sore, and again this morning, and I was like, oh, okay, I get to be gentle with my voice. So I just
Mm.
tapped in, and I was just like, what do I need? Because I could feel the physical feelings. And I know, if my throat starts to go, it means, hey, you've forgotten to look after yourself,
Yeah,
as well as you could. And so I'm then like, right, what do I need? And again, it's just building that connection with yourself, building that communication with yourself. And from there, like everything gets to flow beautifully. But it is a journey. And you can start with just like that tiny 3 seconds. Oh, how do I feel? That's it. Just
yeah.
notice how you feel. But again, if you've not checked in with yourself for a long time, just like I did, then you may not hear anything to start with. And that also is okay. And just persevere. And, if you want support in getting started, find some other people that want to do the same as you.
Yeah.
Just check in with your friends.
Yeah,
How
I
are
mean
you
that's yeah,
feeling?
community is so important in this, and it doesn't have to be a whole community. It can be just one other person who you can. I mean, you mentioned what do I need right now? That's one of my favorite journal prompts, and it's what I start everybody else off on their journey. What do I need right now? Because that's the one that started me off really on my journey to rediscovering who I was, because I was, as I said, I was so lost and I didn't know who I was anymore. And had been journaling for months, and I was just writing the same rubbish time and time again. And I got to the point where I was going to just fling the journal across the room. I can't do this anymore. It's just so frustrating. And that prompt popped into my head. That was my intuition. What do I need right now? So I actually answered it. And sometimes, like, I still do it. This is a prompt I use regularly. And on that particular day, it said I needed to feel emotionally safe. And well, I don't feel emotionally safe with anybody. Um, and so the next prompt that came through was, how can I do that for myself? And I thought, well, I'm already doing it in a way using my journal, but how can I use my journal more powerfully to help me? So that's kind of the route I took down that. But then the other thing is that sometimes I will go, what do I need right now? And I need a walk, I need a cup of coffee, I need a hug. And it can be really, really basic and really simple things. And we sometimes think we get into, and I remember when this first started happening to me, I thought, nah, that's too simple. It can't be that easy. Um, I need to drink water, or I just need to sit and breathe. And no, it's got to be more complicated than that. But actually, it's not, is it?
No, no, it is simple. It's really simple. And I think it's one of the biggest lies that society kind of puts out. Something big and meaningful is complex. No, no. Do you know
Yeah.
what? Something big and meaningful is simple. It's really simple because we've been wired to know how to look after ourselves, really. We've just
Yeah,
forgotten how. We've
yeah, we have.
forgotten
Yeah,
how to listen to ourselves. how to share our stories. This is how we communicated. I know I was writing an article the other day, and the way that we used to speak to each other, we used to give knowledge to each other, we used to live together in
Mm.
community, we shared stories. That's how we shared our history. It's how we learned from each other. It was all stories,
Yeah.
you know? So it is simple, and it gets to be simple. So how do I feel? What do I need? When something like is coming up that you're feeling is like blocking you in any area, for what purpose? Whatever block. And
Mm.
just listen to yourself, because you do know all the answers. But, sometimes you do need that little hand holding to begin. So,
Yeah.
like where you're supporting people with journaling, they know they want to do it, they're not sure how to get started. So,
Yeah.
like, seek that hand holding, because so many of us in so many different modalities and paths and spaces, like, we're here to support you, because it does get to be that simple. So if it's feeling complex, please reach out to someone for support, because it is
Yeah.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even a conversation with somebody, just
Mhm.
um, because when you're getting started, it can be really difficult. And sometimes, that listening into yourself, if you haven't listened to yourself for a long time, can be, yeah, as I said, it can be really tricky because you think it needs to be more. But actually, we are simple creatures at our hearts, aren't we? I mean, you think about the pleasure we get from watching the sunrise. Well, not me, sunrise. I don't do sunrises, but sunsets. Or, sitting in a chair in the garden with a cup of tea, listening to the birds sing. That is just so simple, but it can be such a profound moment. And those moments of quiet, of those moments of actually being at one with nature and being at one with ourselves. And then that power of story, we come back to the story because that the story, other stories connect us. And we hear somebody else's story and we think, oh, maybe I could do that, or I've done that, or yeah, that's my story. And that we feel so much less alone. And, as we said, it can be just our stories don't have to be one or two lines. But like I remember learning history at school, and it was just list of facts. And I hated history until I then picked up some historical novels. And that changed everything completely because you're looking at it through a character, aren't you? And you're seeing their lives. So story is just so powerful, even those little stories. And I think we have, is there anything else you want to say to wind up, to finish off? Is there anything you want to impart to us?
Oh, okay. Take a moment to pause and just look at yourself. The same as I didn't listen to myself for those 15 years, I don't think I really saw myself in a mirror. First time I saw myself, I was like, whoa, God, I've changed. I was still imagining myself from like years ago. So give yourself grace, because whether you have listened to yourself or you haven't recently, you're protecting yourself from something. There's always a reason that we stop listening to ourselves. So when you realize, oh, I get to be kind and gentle and love on yourself now, but also for that past experience, because there's a reason, for me, I believe for everything. So when you feel, oh, I haven't done that, or I haven't done it for a while, or I'm not doing it as much as I want to, like, be kind and gentle, because you're doing your best. You're
Yeah.
always doing your best. So just
Yeah.
take the time, love on yourself, and go gentle. And remember that it's just one little step at a time. And then you get to look back and you go, wow, look what I've
Yeah.
done. Look who I
And that's,
am.
yeah, that's the thing we don't do very often either, do we? We beat ourselves up for the things that we're not doing now or that we haven't achieved. And we don't look back at how far we've come either. So, yeah. So anyway, I wanted to say thank you very much for joining me here, Liz. Thank you for telling me your story, and everybody else for listening. if you have a story to share, please do. You can pop something in the comments and I'll be in contact. I will put Liz's contact details or where Liz hangs out in the comments as well, or the description for this, and my details, and you can contact me. I am collecting stories, any story, and stories and conversations. My word for 2025 is connection, and I'm trying to make as many connections as I possibly can. So I'm going to sign off now. Thank you very much, Liz, for sharing your story. I have absolutely loved meeting you and talking to you, and you are just calmness personified. Thank you.
Thank you.